Hello, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Working for Yourself, Zulf Talks podcast. This podcast is powered by trustedcreators.org. I am Zulf. Hello, and welcome to the show. We have got a section for you today lined up where I'm thinking along the lines of, are you in the ideal position and how to build a life you love? It's easy to say, interesting area, but I'm going to help you in terms of covering three topics within this to maybe find out if you are doing something you love. To give you a summary, topics in the episode will be: number one, find it what it is you want to do. Number two, give it a try. Number three, review and see how that works. If it doesn't do well, you go back to step one. It's quite simple, but we need to build this out a little bit more. And our guest today will help us, being a relationship coach and having a bit of background. We've had her on before, and we can have her on again. So our guest will speak to us about the become to have theory, which kind of fits into this area that we're talking about. She's an expert love educator and relationship coach. She's empowering us to create content online, teaching relationship intelligence. She's best known for her signature program, the Power Couple PhD. Railey Molinario.
Hi, so excited to be back. Thank you very much.
It's really good to have you on. I think the last time we spoke, you talked a lot about some interesting areas, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, it's quite valuable to have this insight. So we want to speak to you today a little bit more about this. And firstly, I'm going to ask you, do you love the life you have built for yourself?
Yes.
Oh,
I do, but it's sometimes crazy to think because the way that I began my life was everything but love. And there was a point where I considered whether or not I wanted to continue with life. And I made the decision to do so, obviously. And I said that if I was going to do this, I was going to create a life that I truly loved, truly enjoyed, and felt connected to.
okay. That's interesting. So covering this from the point of view of, if someone's listening in today and they're not sure if the life they've got is really what they want, sometimes people get stuck working in the day-to-day job. So if you were to think about building a life that you love, in step one, how can you find what it is that you love to do?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing you have to do is really create a vision and really understand yourself. So, in order to decide what it is that you love to do, you have to understand yourself and you have to understand what are your values, what are your beliefs, what are your expectations for life, what are those things that make you happy, make you feel connected, make you feel joyful, and really understand what it is that you want to spend most of your time on. Because, we work almost more than we do anything else. So it has to be something that you feel connected to, something you enjoy doing. And in order to figure that out, you have to understand yourself and what makes you happy and what lights you up.
That's interesting. And to add on to that, it's always quite hard to find what it is you want to do, because sometimes when you're thinking about different concepts in your life and what you're working on, you will always see something that shines out, something that's a bit more of a passion, something that's a hobby. So try and focus yourself on what it is you want to do and build on, and then that would help you to the next step. And then moving on to number two would be quite interesting, because you need to start trying. So what's a safe way or a good way of maybe taking your idea and then trying it to create something you love?
Yeah, so I would say, start small and try to get into that field, try to meet people who are already doing those things. Now we have the power of the internet, so you can go ahead and watch YouTube videos about people who are already doing that, sort of see what their day-to-day life is like, what it will take in order to create that kind of experience. So you can sort of jump into it by living vicariously through other people, or trying it on a small scale by yourself. Coaching, for example, you can start off by having conversations with friends, sort of seeing how you feel about giving advice and supporting people. So it's really just getting your foot in there and seeing, okay, could I make a life out of this? Would I want to work for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours doing this one specific thing?
And this will mean different things to different people because building a life you love, what does that actually mean? Because sometimes it could be, do you love what you're doing? Are you taking it in the route of a different area? So if you were thinking about this, Riley, what do you think building a life you love would mean? What does that actually mean?
Yeah. So I would say it's living a life that you enjoy, waking up every morning, whether it's Monday or Friday, and having that excitement and that focus that this is going to be a great day. As soon as I open my eyes in the morning, the first thing I say to myself is today is going to be a great day. Sometimes some days are better than others, but I truly enjoy the day-to-day practices that I have, the adventures that I get to experience. I think living a life that we love is a holistic idea. It's not simply just what you do for work, although that is a big portion of it. It's the relationship that you have with yourself, the relationship that you have romantically with your children, with friends, with family members. It's your health and fitness plan. How do you physically feel in the body that is taking you on this journey? What do you do for leisure time, activities? So living a life you love is really this holistic, everyday practice that you have.
Okay, that's interesting. So if we're covering this from someone who's thinking about this and they've decided that I'm going to look at these steps. So first they find what they want to do. So say, for example, someone listening today or watching decides they want to become self-sufficient. So maybe they want to move out into the countryside and be a bit more free. So they firstly look at trying it, which would mean maybe taking 2 or 3 weeks in maybe like an Airbnb or somewhere just to see if that is something you want to do, what the life is going to be like. And then you would go to step 3, which would be a review to see, does this actually work? And then that's when you take the next step to move out to maybe look into more of a long-term situation. If it doesn't work for you, the review stage is where you're saying to yourself, actually, I tried it, but what I thought it was, it's not the same when I'm actually doing it. Because sometimes a big life, like, it can hit you quite hard sometimes where you think something is one way and then you discover it's another way. Have you got any experiences of something like that, Riley, that you can maybe share with us?
Yeah. So, for example, my journey has a lot of different jobs and careers built into it, whether they were ideas or things that I actually did. I wanted to work on Wall Street because I was taught, or I had this idea that we work in order to make money. Okay, I want to work in finance, I want to work on Wall Street. And as I was going and studying finance and I was making those moves, I realized that world wasn't for me. Although I had the book smarts to be able to work in that industry, for me, it was way too cold. It was, just an everyday stressful situation. And I didn't feel that I was giving all of myself to work. So yeah, for me, it's great being a coach. It's being able to help people and connect with people. And it's also, financially stable. So I think when we're trying to figure out what it is that we want to do as far as a career, we never go backwards. So I've worked in clothing shops, restaurants, cafes, like you name it. When I was in high school, college, I've worked everywhere. I've changed career paths so many different times. I wanted to open a restaurant. I wanted to open an animal sanctuary. But all of these things have actually been stepping stones to creating the actual career that I have now. So I think, as you said, it's just about trying things, putting yourself out there, reviewing, seeing how things fit with you. And I think information is really important. We have so much access to resources. The question is, are you resourceful? So get people who are in that industry that you are interested in, ask them questions, watch YouTube videos about what it's like to live in a life of a day of a person who lives in the countryside in the middle of nowhere. And then try it. And if you try it and you don't like it, it's all part of the journey. It's just a stepping stone to whatever next is to come.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few things you mentioned there about being okay to go backwards, because sometimes you don't always have to progress and move on. Sometimes you might like what you're doing. So there's nothing wrong with taking a couple of steps back and discovering that maybe what you thought was really good, in fact, it's not much better than what you were doing before. So it's always okay to maybe step sideways and check out what's available. We are live today and we are recording this as a video, so you would be seeing little screen sections of Riley's website and some of the information she does. So we're giving you an example there in terms of how you can do something you love, the 3 steps. And there will be programs or websites or applications that can probably help you through this journey. So things like finding the right career or idea, trying it, reviewing it. Riley, have you got any applications or websites that you prefer to use that kind of help you throughout this journey?
Yeah, so for me, I think organization is key. This is something that helps me. I know everyone is a little bit different. Some people thrive in sort of chaotic environments, and that's amazing. For me, I like things really organized and really clear. So I use an app in my family called Family Wall. And this app for me, it's been a lifesaver. My husband has downloaded it, I've downloaded it. And so basically, what it does is it allows us to have a shared calendar and a shared to-do list. So when I work from home, he works outside of the home. When I'm at home, I'll just go around and say, oh, we need sugar, we need napkins, we need this. I'll put it on the list. He'll get a notification in the app, and it will allow him to go to the grocery store on his way home and just pick up those things. Same thing with a calendar. If there's a birthday coming up or an event coming up, I'll just chuck it into the calendar, and then it will pop up on his calendar. So we have that shared calendar. You can also use it for friends and family members that you have. And so it's just a really easy way to stay organized, because I have, as an entrepreneur, my own calendar, my own to-do list for my business, and so does my husband, because he's also an entrepreneur. But then this family wall, it allows us to share, so it saves us so much time from having to text each other, call each other, hey, don't forget to pick up the toilet paper, remember you have a dentist appointment this weekend, remember that we're going here. We don't have to have any of that stuff. So it's a really great way to stay organized as a couple and as a family.
That's really good. I've just brought it up now. So if you're listening on the podcast, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can click on it and check it out. It looks quite interesting, and it's like a nice, it's always nice to hear it from someone who uses it, because I like to look at apps or websites that work in real life. Sometimes you hear about lots like top 5 or top 10, but you don't know what they're like until you hear someone using it. So I like the fact that it can fit into family life quite nicely, and you can do a number of, it's all in one place, which is good. Like you said, organization is key, so that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still looking at that website. It looks quite
Absolutely.
interesting. Have you got any more?
Yes. So you were asking about podcasts, and I have to admit, although I do appear on podcasts as a guest, I have 2 podcasts of my own. I don't really listen to too many podcasts just because at the moment I don't have so much time. But there is one that I listen to almost every day. And it is by Sean Croxton. And it is called the Quote of the Day Show. So QOTD, something like that. So it's the Quote of the Day Show. It's very short, which is why I listen to it. And he goes through one quote by some motivational speaker or some person who's very impactful. And then he says the quote and he lets them do, it's sort of like a snippet from one of their speeches. And every day it's a new person. It could be Oprah Winfrey to Tony Robbins to this author, this person. Yeah. So it's very simple, easy. There you go. So all of my favorite people who have inspired me to do what I do, it's just a little bit of inspiration. And I think one thing that's really important on this journey of creating this amazing life is having that motivation, having that connection, hearing those stories, hearing that person on your shoulder telling you, you can do this, it's going to be great. So it's a mixture. Every day it's a new person. And I think it only runs maybe 10 minutes. So as I'm walking my dog, I'll go ahead and pop it in. And yeah, it just gives me that morning bliss.
Okay, that's nice. I think I'm going to add that to my list and put it in the show notes again. You'll check that out. But yeah, I always like those where you're talking or you're hearing people that are going through it, and it gives you that little bit of uplift and a different perspective. So it's nice to see that. And yeah, it depends with podcasts. There's loads of lengths out there. So it's great that you can find some that are perfect because some people have, like yourself, if you're walking for like 10, 15 minutes, that might be ideal. Other people have a driving journey, maybe 50 minutes or an hour. So they've found like a nice podcast that fits. So it's great to see that there's loads of options out there for everyone. Looking at your journey, I'm looking back. We did an episode before, so if you haven't already looked at that, I brought it up on screen. We did a video cast and a podcast, so I'll put that in the link so you can check that out, just to get a little bit more background about Railey. But I want to touch on something that you're looking at. Well, not looking at, but you mentioned the become to have theory, and it sounds interesting to me. Can you tell me more about what that is?
Yes. So we often want things outside of ourselves. We want the house, we want the car, we want the relationship, we want, the experience. And this is great. This is what life, is about. It's about having different experiences and trying things and going through this journey. But in order to have those things, we first have to become and then we do. So we don't tend to get things straight away. We have to go through this process of first becoming who it is that we need to become in order to have this thing. So if I want to be a successful entrepreneur, I'm not going to have it overnight. I first have to become a successful entrepreneur within myself, which means what are the characteristics that a successful entrepreneur would have? Well, they're organized, they're hardworking. When I'm thinking about, should I go out and party all night long or should I go to bed early and wake up and go to the gym? I can ask myself, who do I have to be in order to be that, wonderful, successful entrepreneur who's fresh to do podcast features and coach? That's the person who takes care of herself, goes to bed early, and not the one staying up partying all night. So you first become that person that you have to become in order to have those things. And then once you become, then you do. So I become that person inside mentally first, right? Everything happens in the mind first. I get those habits. I really understand. I mold myself to be that character that I need to be. And then I do, meaning I take those actions that I have to take, choosing to go to bed early, wake up and go to the gym as opposed to partying all night. And then once I do that enough times, then I will have the things that I want.
Okay, that sounds like a nice overall way of doing that. So, how have you come to that realization? Is it something you've like tested and worked on, or how did you come to this? Because that's quite a nice, concise like sentence to put it into.
Yeah. So I wish I could say that I've invented this concept, but it is a quite well-known concept that some different people are talking about, whether you hear it from motivational speakers or authors. And we've known this for a really long time, that in order to really have the lifestyle that you want to have, you first have to become the person who's going to take you there, because no one is going to do it for you, right? If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, and you come from nothing, as I have, you have to make yourself into that person that's able to take those steps, that is then able to have those things. And again, everything first happens in the mind. When I was growing up and I came from this very poor family with all of this abuse and neglect, I never thought that I was going to travel the world, have my own business, have the freedom to do whatever it is that I wanted, not in a million years. I come from a very small town. We never traveled as a child. And so that mental block, I was a product of my environment. So I had to learn how to become someone else. How do I become this person who's more optimistic, who's, dreaming about reaching the highest places? I first have to become that in my mind, and then I will take the actions. Because if I believe, oh, I'm never going to travel, I'm never going to have my own business, I'm never going to be in a thriving relationship, then the actions that I take are going to reflect that attitude. I'm not going to try, I'm not going to plan, because I'm thinking, oh, it's never going to happen. But if I say, no, I can have anything it is that I want, I can create whatever life I want, I can be a successful entrepreneur, I can travel wherever I want to, you start to reshape your mind and get rid of those limiting beliefs. You start to become that person in your mind, and then you start to take action, because that is your new belief system. You're reacting off of who it is you believe that you are. And once you start taking enough of those actions, it will come. So we've known this for a while, that this is sort of the way that it has to go. We can't just be sitting on the sofa and, partying all night and doing all these things and say, yeah, I'm going to be, super fit and healthy. And no, you have to first become, then you do, then you have.
Okay, so it's very encouraging hearing this from you, especially from you mentioned about the background, because sometimes people will limit themselves thinking, you know what, I'm not from the best area, I'm not from the best family, I need to start doing something more, but I'm the first person to do something great in the family, for example. So how did you get to this place now? Because how you're speaking is very encouraging, and anybody listening and watching today is going to find it exciting to get on this journey. So how did you get to this headspace?
Yes. So I came from trauma. I came from abuse. I came from neglect. And it was very difficult for me to make that shift. I basically went through that limiting mindset, that self-destruction, the depression, the anxiety, the binge eating disorder, all of those different things, until I hit a wall. And I was very book smart. I was very street smart. On the outside, it looked like I had everything, but in the inside, it was completely empty. And I ended up hitting that wall. I decided one day that I was going to take my life. And in that moment, I asked myself, do I want to die, or do I want the suffering to end? And that's when I realized that those were two different things. And that just because I had this experience before me had nothing to do with the experience that was awaiting me. And so that's when I started to realize that I had control over creating my life, that people did it all the time. I wasn't the only one. And so I think when we come from these backgrounds that are difficult, it is difficult to see, because we believe, we predict what's going to happen based on what's happened before. Sometimes that's a good thing, right? If I always stub my toe on the bed, I'm going to move the bed because I'm going to think I'm going to stub my toe again. But sometimes when we're talking about our lives and our existences, the possibilities are endless. So we really can create whatever life we want to. And so as I started to make that shift and go on that journey, it took years to get my mindset to change. It took years to get the information that I needed. And it took years to find the courage to go out there and to believe that I could have things that I didn't have as a child.
Okay, so to build a life that you love, it's not as easy as the words that I'm saying to you today, but there's loads of background behind this where, like Riley says today, there will be challenging times. It's not going to be easy. Providing you know what it is you want to do, what you want to build, you're going to have to do something. Because like you say, if you're going to be in the sofa all day relaxing, then you're not making an active effort to do something. So make sure you're bringing passion to what you want to do and stepping outside of your normal daily activity. If you try something new, you will find out if you like it, if it's good enough to progress onto, and then you can start basically reviewing and seeing, can this be a long-term goal? If it can't, how can I make it be? So don't try to give up as easily either. So if you're listening today and you're not sure about your journey, there's going to be resources in the show notes where you can actually look at some of the information we're talking about today, a couple of the applications around helping you organize yourself, and more information about Riley as well, because she does offer coaching that you can actually take advantage of, because it can sometimes help to speak to someone to understand what you need to do, and having an expert that already has gone through that will be good. So is there anything else you'd like to add to today's show, Riley?
Yes, I would say that if you are in this position where you have some kind of limiting belief because of your past experiences, or because you just don't know what your strengths are, or you're not in touch with who you are yet, it's really important to understand that everyone is on a journey, that you're not alone, that this is simply a part of life. And the beauty of what we have in 2022 going into 2023 is possibility, that anything is possible. And when we start to get comfortable with the idea of exploration and experimentation, we really start to open those doors into what if I could have that? And I think sometimes we overwhelm ourselves. We might scare ourselves by saying, oh, I'm going to be a billionaire. And we think, oh, that's ridiculous, right? But if we just say it's possible, Whatever it is that we want is possible. It allows us to believe it without becoming overwhelmed. And I think also it's really important that as we go on this journey, motivation is going to get us through the door, but we need to either re-motivate ourselves or transition to discipline. Because I will have to say, if you want a six pack, you look at different pictures and you think, yeah, I want to look like that by summer, and you go to the gym. The first week you're pumped, the second week it's okay, the third week you're like, this isn't working anymore, I don't want to do this. So what we have to do is re-motivate ourselves, which for me is listening to motivational videos every single morning. You have to continue to replenish the motivation. And then when the motivation dies, because it will, you have to then go to discipline if this is something that you truly, truly are in line with and something you truly, truly want, because we're not always going to feel like it. It will get hard. It will get sticky. And you have to decide, does that mean that I just simply don't want it? Or does it mean that I have to go through it by using that discipline?
That's interesting. So speaking about that, there will be times where you try something new, you do it for a little bit. How do you stay consistent? Because that would be something that listeners and viewers today would be interested to do. A lot of people try something new. For example, I've been doing a lot of podcasts, a lot of videos. We're at 145 podcast episodes now. I think you're 156th. And it's like about 4,000 videos out there. So I'm able to keep consistent because I know I've got a workflow set up. But how would you explain that to someone who's not as consistent? How can they be more consistent?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to stay consistent is to tap into your why. So why is this important to you? And when you truly believe that it's worth it, you will put in the effort. When I was building my business, I was working for about a year and a half without making any money. I had no clients because I didn't have a program. I didn't have a method. I didn't have a website. I didn't have content. I had nothing. And so every day working 12 hours a day with nothing coming back to me, you have to tap into that why. Why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? Why is this going to happen regardless of how long it takes? And when you have that belief system and you really believe like this is life or death, like it's this is my life, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get to that point because I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, that why will take you through. And again, you can either work on motivating yourself on a daily basis because motivation doesn't last very long. So, you can do it on a daily basis by reading books, talking to people, watching motivational videos. I do it every single morning. Or you just stick to that discipline. Once you go to the gym, first few times it's fun. After that, it's like, okay, why am I doing this? You just stick to that discipline because you know that the outcome is better if you do it. Excuse me, if you do it than if you don't do it. And so keeping consistent with that vision every day, visualizing, understanding this is what I'm working for. This is what I'm working towards. I know that it's worth it. If you don't feel that it's worth it, you're not going to really do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So a lot of people will get into a system where they're doing something regularly, providing they know what the end goal is, they continue to do that. Sometimes it may not be they want to make lots of money. It may be that they want to speak to lots of people, help people. For example, how you're doing, you want to help relationships maintain longer, basically, and work well. What happens when you get to a point where you've reached where you want to reach and you've got that perfect life and you're happy with how things are going? What do you do next?
I don't think that you ever get there, which is the fun part. I think you can definitely get to a place where you're like, I love my life, and this is where I am now. And it took me, almost 30 years to get here. I absolutely love my life. I wake up every morning feeling excited, feeling happy, connecting with new people, so many opportunities, but there's always room for growth. And, the wisest people know that they know nothing at all. Even with all the information that I have, the studies that I've researched, being able to help couples all the time and do things like this, I have a lot of information, but there's so much to learn. There's so much to experience, and there's so many opportunities to grow that you'll never get bored. You'll never get bored because life is just so abundant with so many amazing things. So even if you feel, wow, my life is perfect, it can just expand. And I think also it helps when you then pay it forward, right? So not only my life is amazing, but how can I make other people's lives amazing? That will also allow you to extend that wonderfulness.
Okay, wow, that's nice overview there. So I think we're going to put some more details in the show notes so you can check out the next show. We got a few of these plans, so we'll figure out how we do these. But thank you very much, Riley, today for speaking to me. It's been a pleasure, and I think what you've shared will someone watching or listening today will motivate them to the next step. So you're paying forward basically with what you're doing. So it's always great.
Thank you so much. Again, I love what you're doing, so thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode, Working for Yourself, ZolveTalks.com podcast. We are available on all the platforms that you would expect to be on: Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. So I will see you on the next episode. We're going to look further into setting up to work for yourself and what it actually is involved in setting that up.